How many times while watching a horror movie have you wanted to yell at the characters to turn around? Or to tell them not to go outside to check a strange noise in their underwear? It makes you wonder, do people in their world even have horror movies? Have they really ever seen these situations play out on screen? But there's one horror franchise whose characters clearly know the genre inside and out.
Surprise, Sydney.
Scream revived the dying slasher trend and kicked off a new era of self-aware, ironic horror. For decades, the series has reflected the evolution of the genre itself, gleefully poking fun at every new trend that's come and gone. In this video, I'll tell the ultimate history of the Scream franchise, breaking down all the films and the TV series, uncovering countless horror references, and exploring how Scream changed the movie industry forever. And by the end, we want you to tell us what's your favorite scary movie.
It's a Scream, baby!
This is ElevenSlate and the ultimate history of Scream. The history of this franchise begins with death. In the early 1990s, after years of decline, slashers died. The horror subgenre about killers picking off victims one by one in memorable locations had peaked after John Carpenter's Halloween in 1978. Audiences were flooded with dozens, if not hundreds, of similar movies, and only a few became true hits and million-dollar franchises. But within a decade, endless sequels to once-beloved stories had drained audiences' enthusiasm. Nobody was rushing to the theater to see another massacre at the hands of Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th. All the major series bombed at the box office, taking long breaks or barely clinging to life, like Michael Myers from Halloween, but without much success. Just watch Friday the 13th Part 9 or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4 and you'll understand the tragedy. One day, an aspiring screenwriter named Kevin Williamson was watching a news story about the Gainesville Ripper, a real-life killer who murdered students in the late 80s. What shocked him most was the meticulous, almost theatrical way the killer arranged the victims' bodies. That image, combined with Williamson's love of horror and his ironic understanding of its flaws, inspired a new story, one that couldn't possibly be just another dumb teen slasher. As I said, the old formulas no longer worked. Everyone was tired of stupid teenagers making the same mistakes obvious to every horror fan. Williamson made one simple change. He brought the golden age of horror into his own world, making it as close to reality as possible. His characters had seen Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and all the classics. They criticized the dumb decisions of on-screen victims, and then repeated those same mistakes themselves.
Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
Proving that in a real crisis, there's often no choice but to run upstairs. The script was titled Scary Movie, emphasizing its satirical nature. It wasn't just another horror film, it was the ultimate one, combining the genre's strengths and weaknesses. That title was later dropped, as it sounded more like a parody comedy, which the Wayans brothers would, of course, use a few years later for their 2000 spoof. Williamson's script immediately caught Hollywood's attention, and a bidding war began over the rights. A remarkable outcome for a writer who had only ever sold one script, and that one never even made it to production. In the end, the script landed in the hands of the Weinstein brothers and their studio, Dimension Films. Scary Movie became Scream, short, sharp, and instantly recognizable name. The search for a director didn't take long either. Horror legend Wes Craven, creator of A Nightmare on Elm Street and the man behind Freddy Krueger, was the top choice. After directing New Nightmare, the 7th Elm Street film, Craven was tired of horror and tried something new. A supernatural comedy with Eddie Murphy called Vampire in Brooklyn. It flopped both critically and financially. Fans wanted something brutal and clever, a return to classic Craven. And Williamson's violent, self-aware script was exactly that. Ironically, New Nightmare had already been a meta-horror movie about making a horror movie, actors playing themselves within the Freddy Krueger universe. Everything lined up perfectly for Craven, except he initially said no. The studio considered Sam Raimi, Robert Rodriguez, George Romero, and other big names, but all of them leaned too much into dark comedy and ignored the horror side. Thankfully, Craven changed his mind. He decided to revive his career through the genre he helped create. The challenge was clear: make a funny, satirical slasher that still scared audiences. The result? In 1996, Scream hit theaters, a surprise box office hit that simultaneously killed off the old-school slasher and brought it back to life. So, the small town of Woodsboro. Evening. A girl named Casey is making popcorn, getting ready to watch a scary movie with her boyfriend. And then the phone rings.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
Who is this?
The main hook of Scream is that opening scene. It's basically a self-contained short film that works perfectly even outside the movie itself. The first victim is played by Drew Barrymore, whose career was on the rise at the time. And imagine this. The most recognizable face on the poster gets killed right at the start. It's impossible not to think of Psycho and Janet Leigh's unlucky heroine in the shower. Wait, wasn't she supposed to be the main character? That's one of the film's first nods to classic horror, and far from the last. Let's break it down. The killer who calls on the phone comes straight out of an old urban legend about a babysitter terrorized by a maniac making phone calls from inside the house. That story inspired Black Christmas, When a Stranger Calls, and one of the most relevant to us, Prom Night, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, who continued to build her status as the Scream Queen. In Prom Night, the killer calls his victims to warn them about their imminent deaths, then slaughters them one by one at a party. It even had that same mystery element, the question of who the killer is. He wasn't some unstoppable force like Michael Myers. You could hit him, hurt him, and under the mask, there was always someone you knew. Fun fact, in Prom Night, Jamie Lee Curtis's father was played by Leslie Nielsen. Anyway, enough about Prom Night, back to Scream. The killer in this movie shares a lot with those earlier villains. He's just a regular human, someone who, for whatever reason, decided to do something horrific. And that makes him even scarier, because running into someone like that in real life is far more likely than meeting an immortal Jason Voorhees. So Ghostface stumbles, trips on his robe, gets hit a lot, and completely breaks the old image of the invincible slasher villain. It's funny, sure, but this clumsy killer is still deadly. Let's talk about his look for a second. There's no deep backstory like Michael Myers' mask being a repurposed Captain Kirk face from Star Trek. This one was simple. Producer Marianne Madalena found the ghostly face mask made by Fun World for Halloween and brought it to the set. Wes Craven initially resisted, wanting a unique look, but in the end, they agreed it was easier to just license the existing mask. That decision gave horror fans another unforgettable icon. By the way, the original names for the costume were Father Death and the Peanut-Eyed Ghost. The Ghostface nickname came later, after this line.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
Fittingly, the mask was inspired by Edward Munch's famous painting The Scream. Quite a coincidence. The purpose of the black robe was simple, to hide the killer's body shape and prevent any clues about who was under the mask. But the most recognizable detail was the voice. To stay anonymous, the killer used a voice changer that distorted his tone.
Listen, asshole!
No, you listen, you little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand?
The voice was performed by actor Roger Jackson, who actually spoke to the actors live over the phone during filming. No post-production dubbing here. To keep the fear real, Jackson never met the cast in person and stayed hidden on set. His deep, menacing tone would not have worked if the actors had seen his friendly face. In the opening scene, the killer asks a question about the murderer's identity in Friday the 13th.
Jason! Jason! Jason!
I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer.
Yeah, a common mistake. That film, among all the sequels, is the one most similar to Scream. It still had that central whodunit mystery that the later Friday movies completely lost. Scream took that concept and turned it into a full-blown detective-style slasher. Later, Casey gives her opinion on A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Freddy, that's right. I like that movie. It was scary.
Well, the first one was, but the rest sucked.
Wes Craven initially wanted to cut that line, not wanting to sound self-congratulatory. But Kevin Williamson convinced him otherwise, saying, well, it's true. Hard to argue with that. Then, through Casey, the writer talks about his favorite horror movie.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know. Halloween.
The film is full of nods to Michael Myers and Halloween. In the opening, Casey crawls toward her parents, who don't see her and walk into the house. Just like Laurie in Halloween 2. And then comes the line,
Drive down to the Mackenzies.
the same advice we heard in John Carpenter's original.
I want you to go down the street to the Mackenzie's house. I want you to tell them to call the police.
Eventually, the killer catches up with Casey and her boyfriend and hangs her from a tree. The audience is stunned. They just killed Drew Barrymore.
You bastard!
And that's where the main plot begins. Our central character is Sydney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell. Her mother was brutally murdered a year earlier. The supposed killer is awaiting execution, but there are still a lot of unanswered questions. We get a brief glimpse of him early on, played by Liev Schreiber, and we'll be coming back to him later. Sydney has a seemingly loving boyfriend named Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich. His name is another nod to Psycho, where Janet Leigh's lover was named Sam Loomis, the same name John Carpenter later gave to the psychiatrist in Halloween. Billy sneaking into Sydney's window is also a direct callback to Johnny Depp's character in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. The next day, we meet the rest of the teens. The Wild Stu, played by Matthew Lillard, his girlfriend Tatum, played by Rose McGowan, and the horror geek Randy, played by Jamie Kennedy. He's worth a closer look because through him, the writers share their whole philosophy of slashers. Every Scream movie needs this type of character, the die-hard movie nerd who constantly compares the events on screen to real horror films. He's the meta voice, breaking the fourth wall and reminding viewers that what they're watching is both a movie and a clever deconstruction of one. It connects the audience to the characters, as if they're all part of the same pop culture universe. Here's Randy's list of rules.
Number 1, you can never have sex.
Hard to argue. Most slasher killers are basically moral enforcers, punishing anyone who breaks the no sex rule.
Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs.
Although I disagree just a little. Remember that prankster in Friday the 13th Part 2 who survived just because he stayed at the bar drinking beer during the final massacre? Still, the rule mostly holds up. These tropes highlight the chaotic, reckless behavior of teens giving in to their impulses away from adult supervision. And finally,
And number 3, never, ever, ever under any circumstances say, I'll be right back, because you won't be back.
no comment needed.
I'll be right back. Don't get dressed.
My favorite fourth wall moment from Randy comes here.
Jamie, look behind you. Look behind you. Turn around.
Since the actor's name is Jamie, he's literally yelling at himself. There are still two major characters we haven't introduced. Journalist Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, and Deputy Dewey Riley, played by David Arquette.
I thought maybe we'd walk. You're not scared, are you?
Their chemistry is off the charts, so much so that it jumped off the screen and into real life. By Scream 3, the two actors were married. Fun fact, Sheriff Burke is played by Joseph Whipp, who also played a cop in the original Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. Kevin Williamson even decided that it's the same character, a man who left Springwood after Freddy's crimes and settled in Woodsboro. Okay, two more cameos before we move on. An unnamed reporter is played by Linda Blair. Yes, that Linda Blair from The Exorcist, the very movie Billy references in his first scene. And the janitor named Fred, wearing Freddy Krueger's red and green sweater, is played by none other than Wes Craven himself.
Not your friend.
Back to the story. The movie follows two intertwined mysteries. Who's killing people now, and who really murdered Sydney's mother? The plot builds toward a 40-minute finale during a house party at Stu's place. The killers turn out to be Stu, the party host, and Billy. Their motives?
You hear that, Stu? I think she wants a motive.
Kevin Williamson originally wanted them to have no motive at all, because pure, senseless evil is far scarier, but the producers disagreed. So Billy's motive became revenge. His family fell apart after Sydney's mother's affair. As for Stu, he's just a psycho who thought killing people would be fun. Their dialogue is full of references to horror's influence on young minds. The writer directly raises that question, and then dismisses it with one perfect line.
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Billy's hatred didn't come from horror movies, it came from family trauma. Real life can twist people far more than fiction ever could. Even Stu, led astray by Billy, meets a fittingly symbolic death by TV set. And Billy, of course, tries to pull the classic slasher move of coming back for one last scare, but Sydney's ready for him.
This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life.
Along the way, we also lose the school principal, played by Henry Winkler. He was originally meant to just appear briefly and survive, but Bob Weinstein didn't like that half the film went by without a kill. So the principal got axed, literally, and it also served a purpose. The students leave the party to go see his body, setting up the final showdown. After poor Tatum's death via garage door and the cameraman's demise, the main cast is battered but alive. time to hand out the Golden Ghostface Award for the most intense kill of the movie. I'll do this for every film in the series. And as much as I'd love to give it to Rose McGowan's scene, the opening with Drew Barrymore still wins. During filming, there was a real scare. Someone forgot to disconnect the phone, and Drew Barrymore accidentally called 911 for real, gasping and screaming into the receiver. Let's just say there were a few awkward conversations afterward. Scream pokes fun at horror tropes, but not when it comes to the kills. Wes Craven made it clear, murder scenes are no joke. In my opinion, there's only one reason Scream might feel like a straight-up comedy today, because of Scary Movie. That parody burned itself into everyone's brain, so when you watch Sidney and Billy talk, you can't help but think of that.
Oh, gee.
The movie was a massive hit. Until 2018, the first Scream was the highest-grossing slasher of all time, earning $173 million on a $15 million budget. It only lost the record to the Hollywood reboot. Audiences love the fresh approach to familiar material, and credit for that goes not just to the writer and director, but also to composer Marco Beltrami, who created not just tension, but emotion. Dewey's theme feels like something out of a Western, and Sidney's melody carries genuine sadness. And, of course, there's Nick Cave's Red Right Hand, now famous again thanks to Peaky Blinders. Wes Craven's Scream isn't just a horror film. It's a smart social commentary on violence, the media, and the influence of cinema itself, while also being a sharp satire of a tired genre. After Scream, countless similar projects followed, some even written by the newly famous Kevin Williamson. I Know What You Did Last Summer turned a psychological drama into a Scream-style slasher. Urban Legend borrowed heavily from Craven's formula, and Cherry Falls flipped Randy's sex rule on its head. Now only virgins were being killed, so everyone rushed to lose it to stay alive. Even Halloween H2O, released 20 years after the original, brought Williamson on board to tweak the script and add Scream-inspired touches. But that's a topic for another video. Back to the main series. When Williamson sold the first script, he also wrote brief outlines for parts 2 and 3, just in case Scream was a hit. And, well, it was. Production on the sequel began just 3 months after the premiere. But soon the crew ran into a new and rapidly growing problem, the internet. How exactly did it get in their way? Let me explain. The whodunit element was one of the best things about the original, so the sequel put special emphasis on keeping the killer's identities secret. Actors were given incomplete scripts, several different endings were written, and the actor playing the killer didn't even know that's where his character was headed. And why all the cloak and dagger? Because the first draft of the sequel's script was stolen and posted online, and Williamson had to rewrite half the movie. It was one of the first major plot leaks in modern film history. I'll come back to what changed in a moment. Sidney and Randy are now at Windsor College, ready to leave the past behind. But Gail has written a book about the Woodsboro tragedy, and now it's been adapted into a movie called Stab. Throughout Scream 2, we keep seeing clips from this movie within the movie, sometimes recreating scenes from the original almost shot for shot. Instead of Drew Barrymore, Casey is played by Heather Graham, Billy Loomis is now Luke Wilson, and Sidney is played by 90s TV star Tori Spelling. Remember that line from the original?
They make a movie about you? Who's gonna play you?
Thanks, Dewey, with my luck they'd guess Tori Spelling.
She totally called it. Realizing that the first Scream exists as a film inside the sequel pulls the audience closer to the world behind the screen. Reality and fiction bleed together, giving everything a slightly surreal feel. That's Scream 2 in a nutshell. For the record, those Stab excerpts were directed by Robert Rodriguez. Later, he'd fully team up with Kevin Williamson on the faculty. As Randy puts it,
So it's our job to observe the rules of the sequel. The body count is always bigger. Death scenes are always much more elaborate. More blood, more gore.
This time, the script turns the analysis on sequels themselves, which, as the rules go, are almost always worse than the original, with rare exceptions. And Scream 2 almost breaks that rule. In some places, it even goes toe-to-toe with the first film. It's still intense and intriguing, widens a suspect list, and keeps trying to outsmart the audience. It's undeniably a terrific sequel, but not better than the first. Very few are. And almost every time that happens, the director's name is Cameron.
You got a hard-on for Cameron.
I wouldn't go that far, but Aliens is a stone-cold masterpiece. At a preview screening of Stab, 2 college students are murdered, conveniently sharing the same names as Billy and Stu's victims. They're played by two 90s breakouts, Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett, not yet Smith.
Oh, wow!
Yep, that would have solved a lot. You can find theater kill scenes in plenty of movies, but two that fit Scream's vibe perfectly are He Knows You're Alone and Lamberto Bava's Italian cult classic Demons. If you've got other good examples, drop them in the comments. Meanwhile, a copycat killer starts circling Sydney, and the gang has to figure out who it is before Ghostface reaches the core cast. Dewey, alive but limping, shows up to protect Sydney, and Gail arrives to land an interview with a newly freed Cotton Weary, who was accused of killing Sydney's mother in part 1. Primary suspect, right there.
Lovable and fucked up Sidney Prescott, everybody's favorite little victim. Wow!
The second big suspect is Sydney's new boyfriend, Derek, played by Jerry O'Connell, who was heading TV's Sliders around the same time. Another TV name in the cast is Sarah Michelle Gellar. Her Buffy the Vampire Slayer was already in Season 2. It's no accident that her character, Cece, is watching Murnau's 1922 Nosferatu on TV. Sadly, Cece doesn't last that long. Scream keeps killing celebrities after just a few minutes of screen time. In that sequence, the film even tips its hand that there are at least two killers. One talks on the phone while the other sneaks up behind Cece. It ends with a balcony fall and another visual nod to the original Halloween. Half the movie, our resident cinephile Randy argues with classmate Mickey that sequels are always inferior.
Empire Strikes Back. It's a better story, improved effects.
Not a sequel, part of a trilogy completely blended.
Hidden in that argument is a clue to the big twist. Why is Mickey so desperate for the sequel to be better? Because he's the reason this sequel exists.
Surprise, Sydney.
Yeah, Oliphant's character turns out to be one of the killers, but that wasn't the original plan. As I said, Williamson had to rewrite after the leak. In the first version, the killers were Derek and Sydney's friend Hallie, played by Elise Neal. The script even hints at a female killer in Randy and Mickey's conversation, and the opening theater discussion nods toward race. They dropped that idea, and the initially harmless Mickey became the psycho. What didn't change was the mastermind, Mrs. Loomis, played by Laurie Metcalf, Billy's mother, who spends the whole film pretending to be an awkward reporter. It's a clear echo of Friday the 13th, where Mrs. Voorhees was the original killer, avenging her son.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
As you'll recall, not knowing that cost Casey's boyfriend his life. Mrs. Loomis found Mickey online, another jab at the internet as a hive of problems, and cooked up a revenge plan. Mickey's goal was to get caught and spark a sensational trial blaming pop culture for everything under the sun. Not happening. Never trust the guy planning a massacre for clout.
Two birds, one stone.
A bit earlier, paying homage to the slasher The Slumber Party Massacre, Randy is killed. A painful loss for the franchise. By part 3, you'd think they'd have to replace him. Or maybe not.
Told you I'd make a movie someday. Huh?
Oh my god.
Special shout out to Gail's new cameraman, who simply walks off the job mid-movie and survives. Another neat subversion of stock character behavior. The finale unfolds on a stage, near Derek's body, killed in a fraternity ritual. It's very reminiscent of a death in Final Exam. I'm nominating Derek's death for the Golden Ghostface. Mickey's psychological pressure pushes Sydney to doubt her boyfriend's sincerity. It's a brutal, emotional moment. It's also aimed squarely at the fans who read the leaked script. Just when you solve the mystery, Derek actually dies. Before that, the would-be killer Hallie also gets taken out after a nerve-wracking crawl over an unconscious Ghostface. The sequel really did go bigger and tenser. More suspects, more victims, more sustained chases and hide-and-seek set pieces. One standout, Dewey's stabbing in a recording studio. Beautifully staged. Yes, he cheats death again and reminds Gail what actually matters. They leave together in an ambulance, and by part 3, Courtney is billed as Courtney Cox Arquette. Gail gets injured too. Craven and Williamson put the heroes through the ringer, but kept them alive. For the next few films, the trio of Sydney, Gail, and Dewey becomes the franchise's indestructible core. Mickey and Mrs. Loomis die, and Sydney finishes off the mastermind, clearly wishing she'd done it sooner, instead of hesitating when the killer was down. As for Cotton Weary, he gets a much kinder arc. In the original draft, he killed Mrs. Loomis and then tried to shoot Sydney, still bitter about being falsely accused. Thanks to the leak, Cotton gets a kind of happy ending, and those long-awaited 15 minutes of fame. In his interview scene, you can spot writer Kevin Williamson himself, and Wes Craven climbs the career ladder with a cameo as a hospital doctor. The studio was confident even before release. They even considered sticking another Ghostface up on this bell tower to tease Part 3. Scream 2 earned just $1 million less than the original at the box office, but the next installment would take a little longer. Wes Craven decided to make a non-horror film. Don't worry, he wouldn't stay away for long. Kevin Williamson, meanwhile, cranked out a stack of scripts, mostly slashers and teen dramas, and even directed a film based on his first story. And while Craven would return to Scream pretty quickly, Williamson wouldn't be available to write the third one. Maybe that's why, in 2000, we got the weakest entry in the entire franchise, in my opinion anyway. A film that only seems weaker when compared to the rest of the series. On its own, it's still fun, and it should be enjoyed. The real problem is that Scream 3 forgot it's not just supposed to parody slashers, it is a slasher. The threequel got much lighter and goofier. You could even say it turned into another scary movie, except this one came out before the famous parody. It all starts out pretty tense. A new killer murders Cotton Weary and his girlfriend. That's the last truly suspenseful moment in Scream 3. A pattern emerges right away. If you see a character in the opening scene, they're not going to make it. Cotton's become a TV star and even played himself in Stab 2. And if you look at the full draft of the Scream 3 script, you'll find his girlfriend was playing the character Cece, the one from Scream 2 played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. The original concept Kevin Williamson planned never made it to screen. Shortly before final filming began, the Columbine school shooting happened, when two teenagers opened fire inside their high school. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the dangers of violence in pop culture, and the filmmakers had to protect themselves from public outrage. So Williamson's idea of murderous teens obsessed with Stab had to be rewritten overnight. It was all supposed to end with a shocking twist. Every single victim in the final massacre turns out to be in on it, part of a staged event. And orchestrating the whole thing, Stu, alive and manipulating everything from behind bars, like Hannibal Lecter. The new writer, Aaron Kruger, who had just written the solid thriller Arlington Road, started rewriting during production. The story set him move from Woodsboro to Hollywood, onto the set of Stab 3. The new Ghostface is hunting Sydney, who's now living under a fake name. At every crime scene, he leaves behind old photos of her mother. Everything points to secrets buried deep in the past of the original movie's characters. The script swings a hammer straight through the fourth wall harder than ever. Alongside the returning heroes, we meet the actors playing them in Stab 3. The sets are recreations of memorable places from the first film. The movie keeps joking about leaked scripts and multiple endings because the killings happen in the same order as in the movie within the movie. The twist? Each version of the script has a different death order, so no one knows who's next. Among the newcomers is Emily Mortimer, playing Sydney in Stab 3, since, within the Scream universe, Tori Spelling refused to return. Same with David Schwimmer, who supposedly played Dewey. Now it's actor Matt Kiesler. Gail is played by Parker Posey, and there's a new character to fill the void left by Randy. Because every Scream needs its horror nerd. In this movie, Randy's replacement is Randy himself.
And they're giving up my virginity to Karen Kolchak at the...
Karen Kolchak?
Yes, Karen Kolchak.
Creepy Karen?
Shut up!
Before dying, he recorded a videotape in case of a third killing spree, laying out the rules of trilogies. The tape is delivered by his sister, played by Heather Matarazzo, added just in case they needed to reintroduce the beloved archetype. Wes Craven received hundreds of angry letters from fans who couldn't accept Randy's death. They even considered bringing him back, but decided it would cheapen the powerful moment from Part 2. The classic horror references in Randy's tape don't really land, though. The idea that the third part and the end of a trilogy are two different things is great, but the writers didn't have time to find strong examples.
It's a rarity in the horror field, but it does exist.
Honestly, I couldn't think of a single horror trilogy before 2000 that actually reveals the hero's hidden past by the end. It feels like the new writer came up with a clever concept that doesn't have a real precedent. Sure, Return of the Jedi and The Godfather Part 3 are good examples, but they're not slashers. Same goes for this rule.
You got a killer who's going to be superhuman. Stabbing him won't work, shooting him won't work. Basically, in the third one, you got to cryogenically freeze his head, decapitate him, or blow him up.
It's there only to justify the mildly funny twist with the bulletproof vest that suddenly makes the killer invincible.
Maybe you just can't get past the surface of things.
To be fair, the new Ghostface does have some sci-fi level tricks. His voice modulator can perfectly imitate anyone's voice. It basically does what modern AI voice tools do now. Scream was ahead of its time.
Now,
you lose.
On the one hand, it opens up new ways to build tension in the phone call scenes. On the other, it's kind of overkill. There's even a scene where Ghostface blows up the actor playing Dewey, luring him into a gas-filled house using a fax machine and making him light a match in the dark.
Whoever smells the...
Pure genius. My pick for the Golden Ghostface Award. Dumb, but fun. That house wouldn't have exploded if these characters acted like survivors from the earlier films. But this new bunch splits up, ignores every warning, and dies one by one. In Williamson's scripts, when a character ends up alone, there's always a good reason. Why was Randy alone? Because Dewey and Gale needed to trace the call, and Randy didn't expect an attack in broad daylight. The killer might not even have planned it. It was just an opportunity. Here, though, we're back to pure slasher logic. What's another good example of comedic absurdity? Well, how about this? Gale runs into Jay and Silent Bob on set.
Dude, I think she likes me, man.
A cameo that totally breaks the film's internal reality. And in the archives, we meet Bianca Burnett, played by Carrie Fisher, who says,
I was up for Princess Leia. I was this close. So who gets it? The one who sleeps with George Lucas.
Another funny moment. And from that line grows the movie's main theme, sexual harassment in Hollywood. I'm sure Harvey Weinstein laughed hard reading that script about sleazy producers trading roles for favors. He wouldn't be laughing much longer, though, less than 20 years in fact. Producer John Milton, played by Lance Henriksen, had a shady history with Sidney's mother, who, in her Hollywood youth, had an affair that resulted in a son. Yes, the main villain of the threequel turns out to be Sidney's long-lost brother. A clear nod to one of Michael Myers' earliest motivations, hunting his sister Lori. But who is it? Someone familiar? Maybe Dewey. Or the new Detective Kincaid, played by Patrick Dempsey? No, it's... Would have been better that way. Under the Ghostface mask is Roman, the director of Stab 3, played by Scott Foley, the guy everyone thought was dead. Because of all the secrecy, even Foley didn't learn about the twist until near the end of filming. Imagine signing on to play a regular guy and finding out halfway through that you're the killer. What were the clues? Honestly, almost none. It's hard to play detective when there's nothing to go on. In the first two movies, the hints are buried between the lines, in dialogue and acting choices. Why does Billy glance at the door before sleeping with Sidney? Because he's waiting for Stu. Why was Mickey so desperate to prove sequels can be better? Already explained that one. Roman's motive, meanwhile, is revenge. His mother rejected him as a child. And most importantly, he was the one who pushed Billy to start the original Woodsboro murders. Scream 3 ends up being the keystone that ties the whole trilogy together. The true finale. Only, it wouldn't stay that way for long. It's a crime to kill a franchise that still makes over $160 million at the box office, even with questionable quality. Then again, the real crime of Scream 3 is Courtney Cox Arquette's bangs. I'm not kidding. That's one of the top fan complaints about the entire movie.
Bangs again. Someone staged an intervention.
Yo, Weathers, weren't you two, Yeah.
And honestly, I get it. Scream 3 is fun, self-aware, and never boring, but it's too far removed from the emotion and tension of its predecessors. Parker Posey is fantastic as the neurotic actress, and Dewey and Gale are still adorable. But the suspense dies right after Cotton's murder. Basically the moment the title card appears. And really, why watch a slasher parody that isn't quite a parody when you could just rewatch Scary Movie? Everyone decides for themselves. In the end, Sidney has nothing left to fear. She even leaves her front door open. Evil is gone. Scream 3 really was meant to close the trilogy. In the 2000s, Craven and Williamson crossed paths again on the flop Cursed. Later, Williamson launched his biggest hit, The Vampire Diaries. And between seasons, he accepted the Weinsteins' offer to write Scream 4. When word got out he was back, Wes Craven signed on to direct again. The old masters returned, to roast a new generation of horror, because the genre and the industry itself had changed a lot. When the wave of satirical slashers died out, remakes took their place.
Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, Dawn of the Dead, The Hills Have... Piranha. It's one of those, right?
And that's not all. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 showed everyone how to properly reboot a horror franchise, and soon every self-respecting series followed suit. Scream 4 Breaking the trilogy concept centered its story on a satire of remakes and endless horror franchises that just don't know when to stop. It opens with a jab at the biggest horror hit of the 2000s, Saw.
But you don't give a shit who dies because there's no character development. There's just body parts ripping and blood spewing. Ugh.
That was a deliberate choice by Craven and Williamson, who both believed it was crucial to keep the original trio, Sidney, Gale, and Dewey, in the movie. The audience needed that emotional connection. Swapping out main characters every film, they felt, would kill the viewer's investment. So, it's been 10 years. Dewey and Gale finally got married, though Courtney Cox and David Arquette divorced in real life. Sydney has written a book about her life as a perpetual survivor and is now touring the country. Only one stop remains, her hometown, Woodsboro. And of course, the killings begin again. Alongside the veterans, Scream 4 brings in a new wave of young, rising stars, many of them with hit TV shows or teen movies behind them. It's all by the franchise playbook. Instead of Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jerry O'Connell, we get trendier faces like Hayden Panettiere from Heroes and Lucy Hale from Pretty Little Liars. The film opens with the killer terrorizing Hale and her friend, another TV star, this time from the 90210 reboot. And then it turns out to be a scene from Stab 6, being watched by Veronica Mars and Rogue from X-Men.
That was so fucking stupid. Pure horseshit. The death of horror right here in front of us.
First fourth wall break, achieved. But then even that turns out to be part of Stab 7. Scream 4 dives headfirst into meta storytelling, openly mocking itself and predicting how these layered references would look in the future sequels. And honestly, they nailed it.
Self-aware, postmodern meta shit. Stick a fork in 1996 already.
Rumor has it that Stab 5 involved time travel. Yes, inspired by Gale Weathers' books, the Stab franchise within Scream has become one of those never-ending horror stories that'll do absolutely anything to feel fresh. You can't help but see it as a premonition of where Scream 7 might go. But let's get back to Scream 4. The mandatory horror geeks, Robbie and Charlie, played by Eric Knudsen. You might remember him as Detective Matthews' son from Saw 2, and Rory Culkin from the Home Alone family. Explain the new rules. The main rule of remakes is
modern audiences get savvy to the rules of the originals, so the reversals become the new standard.
The 21st century completely changed how we consume stories. Audiences are driven by both nostalgia and the hunger for something new, so remakes have to feel like they were made back then, while simultaneously trying to outdo the original. More blood, more bodies, more twists, more suspects. That's why Scream 4 gives us quick celebrity cameos in the opening, but ramps up the chaos with double fourth wall breaks and rapid, almost music video editing. There's the obligatory death of the local beauty, just like Tatum in the first movie, but bloodier and clearly inspired by Dario Argento's Deep Red. And in the opening, there's another nod to Rose McGowan's garage door death, reimagined as a murder weapon again. The school principal gets a pass this time, but they honor him with a statue, visible only in the deleted scenes, of which there are plenty. In one of those, we even see Wes Craven himself again, this time as a coroner. Then comes the traditional party sequence, where Gale sets up hidden cameras, just like before, and, just like before, nothing works properly.
Gale! Gale, behind you!
During the party, it's finally confirmed as canon. Robert Rodriguez really did direct the stab scenes from Scream 2. His name even shows up in the credits. One of the most interesting newcomers is Deputy Judy Hicks, played by Marley Shelton, a major distraction from the real killer. She's obsessively attached to Dewey, hostile toward Gale, and has some mysterious history with Sidney. But like any good magician's flourish, Judy is just misdirection, so Craven can pull the real trick from his hat, Emma Roberts.
Hello, Sydney. Surprised?
I haven't mentioned her character yet, Jill, Sidney's cousin, who's eaten up by jealousy over her famous relative. She decides to literally recreate Sidney's story, hoping to grab her own share of fame. To do that, she manipulates Rory Culkin's character, a shy film nerd pining after Kirby, Hayden Panettiere's character.
This is making a move.
On one hand, the betrayal makes their scene worthy of a Golden Ghostface nomination. The heartbreak hits hard, right when a romantic connection starts to form. But since Panettiere's Kirby survives and will return in later installments, the honor goes to Sidney's insufferable publicist, played by Alison Brie, a tense, nasty little sequence with a killer payoff.
We are very close to bringing this whole situation under control.
The new killer's motives are crystal clear. envy, and ambition. In a twisted remake of the classic cover stabbing trick, the villainess kills her partner instead. Seems like Mickey's example didn't teach anyone anything. Earlier, there's even a scene where Ghostface wounds Jill, just like Derek in Part 2, a deliberate echo of that moment, though here it's just a distraction, as originally planned for O'Connell's rewritten storyline. These new killers record every murder with webcams, planning to upload it all online, turning their spree into an art project meant to surpass the original massacre. There's also a callback to the franchise's roots, a horror trivia quiz with a tied-up victim.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Kirby handles it much better than Drew Barrymore's character ever did, but by remake logic, you know what happens next. And here it is, the major rule change, the biggest shock, exactly what those movie nerds talked about earlier. Jill stabs Sydney, fakes an attack on herself, and becomes the final girl. Whisked off to the hospital as cameras flash. Roll credits. At least, that was Kevin Williamson's original ending. He wanted to shock viewers by letting evil win, proving his characters right about remakes. No rules, higher stakes. His plan for Scream 5 was the reverse of the usual formula. Sydney survives but suffers amnesia, while Jill keeps killing. For the first time, the killer's identity would be known from the start, but the producers thought that was too much. So Aaron Kruger, the same writer from Scream 3, was brought in to rewrite. They shot an extra ending, making it more traditional. The heroes fight Jill in the hospital, fry her brain with a defibrillator, and Sydney reminds her of one basic rule of any remake.
You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't f with the original.
And Scream 4 nails that rule perfectly. It respects the original while adding just enough 21st century slasher energy. It ups the ante, but still politely lets the classics take the lead. Even the direct horror references are fewer this time. Why bother, when Scream itself has become the reference point? Most Easter eggs come through background posters and names, like Officer Anthony Perkins, same as the actor who played Norman Bates in Hitchcock's Psycho. There's one more change that goes against Wes Craven's philosophy from the early films. Some of the death scenes are played for laughs.
I'm gay! If it helps.
Yep, one of the new survival rules from the movie geeks. And for the first time, the soundtrack drops Nick Cave's Red Right Hand, even though he recorded a special horror version for the third film. Scream 4 would become the last entry made by the original creators. Wes Craven passed away in 2015, making this his final film. Kevin Williamson would later return only as an executive producer, while new writers took over the scripts. At first, there were no plans for another sequel. Scream 4 had modest box office results, and the franchise followed the path of many horror icons in the 2010s. It moved to television. But how do you turn a slasher into a TV show? You're about to find out. A crucial part of Scream has always been reflecting not just slasher history, but the entire screen industry with its new trends. In the second decade of the 21st century, TV exploded. Dozens of shows turned into hundreds. So why not try a serialized slasher? There were earlier attempts, Harper's Island, for example, but the TV Scream would develop and road test workable rules for a subgenre that seems ill-suited to many hours of storytelling. As one character puts it,
"You can't do a slasher movie as a TV series."
Even so, Bob Weinstein said in an interview that there were no new big-screen Scream films on the horizon. The series had found the ideal place to evolve. Let's see if that's actually true. In 2015, MTV premiered the first episode of the Scream TV show. It starts by the book. Teen star Bella Thorne, in her underwear, heads for a jacuzzi. And then the killer strikes. Phone calls fade into the past. Messengers rule the world now. Text, pics, video. That's how the new Ghostface terrorizes people. Or rather, the iconic mask didn't make it to TV. The killer looks like this instead. At first, there were rights issues, and by the time they were cleared, the producers were already on set creating a new mask. Wes Craven argued against it and pushed to keep Ghostface as we knew it, but the new mask decision stuck. Roger Jackson's voice was sidelined too. During phone scenes, actors spoke to a crew member reading the lines. The sinister voice was added in post.
What you should really be asking is, did you just lock me in or out?
The plot. In the town of Lakewood, a popular girl named Nina, Bella Thorne, is murdered, and then the threat started targeting the smart, grounded Emma, played by Willa Fitzgerald, and her mom. All of it connects to an old killing spree by a disfigured, developmentally challenged outcast, Brandon James, who had a close relationship with Emma's mother. Or was he innocent? That's what our leads have to figure out. Enter Brooke, the popular mean girl, rebel film nerd Audrey, the handsome new guy Kieran, and the show's sweetest soul, the requisite horror geek Noah. Later, a colorful true crime podcaster Piper joins the investigation. Suspects and potential victims are everywhere, and there's far more time to let it all simmer. At first, making Scream a series feels like a big mistake. How can a whodunit stretch beyond 2 hours? But by the end of episode 1, Noah lays out the creator's true aim. It's not who did it or why that matters most. It's the relationships, cheating, fighting, reconciliations, friendship, and betrayal. The mission is to make viewers care about the characters and their everyday lives.
You root for them, you love them, so when they are brutally murdered, it hurts.
It's no accident the MTV logo pops up first. This is another teen soap set in high school, played by actors who look 30, and then it's a slasher that never quite feels at home in a multi-episode format. By the end of season 1, the killer is unmasked. And it turns out to be, I debated spoiling it, but since far fewer people watched the show than the movies, I'll keep it quiet. I'll just say the mystery isn't as compelling as it first seems. There are some solid suspense beats, but not many truly interesting characters. It's an MTV teen drama packed with pop hits. Don't expect screenwriting revelations. Emma is the near-saintly final girl. Audrey is the tough, decisive cinephile. Brooke is the sultry, brash princess. Every archetype evolves exactly as prescribed. No genre deconstruction, no playful satire. TV Scream plays it with a very straight face. In season 2, we learn the original killer had an accomplice. The hunt stretches across 13 episodes, each named after a classic horror film and loosely echoing it. For instance, The Vanishing centers on being buried alive, much like the European thriller of the same name, later remade in the US with Kiefer Sutherland and Sandra Bullock. If you haven't seen the original, I recommend it. It's chilling. The show was initially conceived as an anthology like American Horror Story, but season 1 landed well enough that they continued the same story, and even added a special follow-up episode with a new killer.
Hello, Emma. Miss me?
You're dead.
You'll never get away from me, Emma.
Only after that farewell did a 6-episode third season arrive, with an entirely new cast, producers, and setting in real-world Atlanta. Queen Latifah took the reins behind the scenes. The best part? The return of the real Ghostface mask and Roger Jackson's voice on the phone.
Stick my knife in and cut through your bone and meat until it scrapes against what matters most, or there's gonna be blood on your hands and mine.
And this mask isn't a nod to Woodsboro. It has its own story logic. One of a pair of twins ward on a tragic night, and now the image haunts the other.
I got you, bruh. I got you.
No, I got you.
It's a shame the TV Screams exist completely separate from the film canon. A cameo from Gale on a book tour or a drop-in by Sidney would have spiced things up. At least Tony Todd shows up, dubbed the Hook Killer here, a wink at Candyman, where he, of course, starred.
Let's dance.
The core mystery? Lost twin brothers, a goth horror fangirl, social justice organizers, drug dealers, and more. Because it all wraps in just 6 episodes, the Season 1 Geeks thesis no longer works. There isn't enough time to bond with another batch of thinly sketched characters, the resolution comes too fast, and the twist doesn't really surprise. After Season 3, the series was canceled, and Scream moved to its next phase, prepping a big 5th film. In 2018, David Gordon Green's Halloween made a fortune. The rights holders took notice. They had a sleeping giant on their hands, ready not for a remake, but for a reimagining, a very convenient term that can mean anything. The Weinsteins were out of the business by then, and the rights had shifted to Spyglass. The film was shot in 2020, but COVID delayed the release. The 5th entry finally hit theaters in January 2022, titled simply Scream, no numbers attached. And really, it doesn't need a number, because this isn't just a sequel, it's a requel. That's what they call the remix of sequel and remake that became so popular in the 2010s. Star Wars Episode 7 and 8, Terminator 5 and 6, Jurassic World, even The Last Chainsaw Massacre. The goal is to bring the story closer to the original, borrowing old plot beats while continuing the timeline and shifting focus to a new generation of heroes who can take the torch from the veterans. It's meant to attract new viewers unfamiliar with the classic, while still pleasing longtime fans. Usually, that second part doesn't work out. But Scream 5 handled it surprisingly well. The film was directed by Matt Bettinelli Olpin and Tyler Gillett of the filmmaking collective Radio Silence, the guys behind the VHS anthology series and the fun horror thriller Ready or Not. In other words, not random newcomers, but genuine horror nerds whose careers were inspired by Scream and Wes Craven himself. The movie opens with a classic scene. Tara, played by Jenna Ortega, answers the phone and gets attacked by the killer. But come on, we've seen this before. We know what's coming. She survives. Right from the start, this new Scream adds a small but clever twist. The franchise continues to chronicle modern horror trends, showing what today's audiences actually value.
What's your favorite scary movie?
The Babadook. It's an amazing meditation on motherhood and grief.
Classic slashers have been replaced by elevated horror, atmospheric, symbolic, layered films full of subtext and slow dread. Sooner or later, Scream was bound to wander into midsummer territory. But for now, it's still a slasher. Occasionally funny, but gorier and meaner than its predecessors ever dared to be. The traditional horror quiz doesn't cover Halloween or Elm Street anymore. It's about the stab movies themselves, a meta recap of Scream.
What Woodsboro native was introduced as the franchise's main character?
It's Sidney Prescott.
Correct.
A brilliant way to catch newcomers up on franchise lore. Tara even has to Google one of the answers, and we see the fake cast of the first stab. Stu was played by Vince Vaughn, Tatum by Alicia Silverstone, and the principal by Ron Howard. Honestly, I'd totally watch that version. After Tara survives. Her older sister Sam, played by Melissa Barrera, returns to Woodsboro with her boyfriend Richie, played by Jack Quaid, and a dark secret. She's the biological daughter of Billy Loomis, conceived back in high school. Now she hallucinates her killer dad urging her to finish his work.
How you doing, Sam?
For this cameo, Skeet Ulrich returned, digitally de-aged, and honestly, it looks fine. Sam's inner battle becomes one of the core threads of the new Scream era. Her and Tara's last name, Carpenter, isn't exactly subtle, and if Sam used her dad's, she'd be Sam Loomis, straight out of Psycho and Halloween. The movie's biggest meta reference, though, isn't horror at all. It's Star Wars Episode 8. Turns out the Stab franchise within the Scream universe fizzled out after Part 8, and that one didn't even use a number in its title. Self-awareness level, expert. And who directed that fictional movie?
Remember the Stab movie that came out last year?
Oh yeah, the one the Knives Out guy directed, right?
Rian Johnson, of The Last Jedi. He reimagined Stab so hard that Ghostface now wore a chrome mask and carried a flamethrower. In the same YouTube clip scene, we learn that Kirby from Scream 4 actually survived. A link to an interview with her appears on screen. So this time, movies themselves become the source of evil. Fans of Stab are furious, and for the first time in the Scream franchise, cinema itself is the catalyst for the murders. The events of Scream 4, the Jill and Charlie murders, never made it into the fictional Stab films. Rian Johnson's reboot ignored them completely. The new rules? Replicate the original as closely as possible, which is why the finale again takes place at Stu Macher's house. Before that, our characters sit outside the school, discuss the killings, and the obligatory movie geeks explain what to expect from a requel's plot twists. This time, the nerds are Randy's niece and nephew, Mindy and Chad, children of his sister Martha, who briefly appeared in Scream 3. The most important rule: in a requel, someone from the original trio has to die. Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, John Connor, and now Dewey. He's divorced from Gail, retired, and haunted by regret.
Got dumped by your famous wife and crawled into a bottle.
Well, maybe you're the killer, because that cut deep.
Everything foreshadows his death, his loneliness, his resigned tone, his final call with Gail, his decision to go back and make sure the killer's dead. But before that, he rescues Tara from the hospital in a scene echoing Halloween 2, when Laurie Strode realizes she's alone in a hospital with the killer. Then Sidney returns to Woodsboro, now married to Detective Mark Kincaid from Scream 3 and raising kids. She can't ignore the murders and comes back to face Bill Loomis's legacy, the man who started it all.
Billy Loomis started this, and we're gonna end it.
Though technically, Scream 3 revealed Roman was the mastermind. Looks like they quietly retconned that part. Another callback. Sidney once lived on Elm Street, a sweet nod to Wes Craven. They even named a character after him, Wes, played by Dylan Minnette, only to kill him off brutally. I really thought he'd make it to the end and his mom Judy would die instead. So Wes's death gets my golden Ghostface for best shock. His murder pulls everyone together for a memorial and the iconic shout.
To Wes!
To Wes!
Beautiful son of a bitch.
That line was recorded by many Scream alumni, Drew Barrymore, Matthew Lillard, Henry Winkler, and more. A perfect tribute. Dewey's death is heartbreaking, but he goes out knowing exactly what's coming.
Never trust the love interest. The first victim always has a friend group that the killer is a part of.
Because Richie is indeed one of the killers, along with Amber, Tara's friend. Richie even gets lightly stabbed early on to throw us off, just like Derek and Joe before him. Their motive? The Stab series sucks now, so they're creating a real-life sequel for the writers to adapt. Something as close to the original as possible, but with a fresh twist, and they plan to frame Sam, Billy Loomis's daughter, the perfect killer reveal. That's what toxic fandom does to people, in any fandom. For the first time, Scream puts the spotlight on a generation of young viewers raised on the very movies they idolize. I found their motivation hard to buy, although you should have seen me after watching the 9th episode of Star Wars. These over-the-top killers perfectly embody Scream's meta-commentary. For years, the franchise was blamed for inspiring real-world violence, and now those same accusations literally become its villains. Their plan is smart and tight, but they miss a few things. You don't mess with Sidney. You can't break sisterly trust that easily, and Sam definitely has a bit of her dad in her. While Amber gets torched by the original fangirls, Sam brutally kills Richie. The darkness inside her is starting to leak out, and it's only a matter of time before she's the one behind the mask. But according to good screenwriting rules, that won't happen right away. First comes the slow burn of doubt and attachment. After Amber tries to go full Chucky from the end of Child's Play, the nightmare finally ends.
I still prefer the Babadook.
And surprisingly, a lot of characters make it out alive. Randy's niece and nephew get mangled, but survive, and Mindy watches a movie featuring her uncle, leading to a triple-layer callback. Randy shouts, "Look behind you, Jamie!" at Halloween's Laurie Strode, parodying the original Scream, while Mindy does the same in this one.
Look behind!
Jamie!
Oh, shit!
Classic requel-style homage to an iconic moment. Tara also survives, defying every slasher rule that said she was doomed from the opening scene. That body count ratio balances the film's major sacrifice, Dewey, the series' kindest and most endearing soul. The movie ends by recreating a final shot of the original Scream, the camera pulling back from Stu Macher's house as the press crowds around. Judging by box office and fan reaction, the requel worked, earning around $140 million and winning over both newcomers and old-school fans. Within a month of the release, the studio greenlit Scream 6 with the same team returning, except for Neve Campbell, who refused to come back after a pay dispute. So for the first time ever, the series will go on without Sidney Prescott. Will it work? Let's find out, because in 2023, just a year later, Scream 6 hit theaters. After a successful relaunch, slapping a number on the title won't scare off new fans. The people who really got into it, and there were plenty, have already watched the earlier movies, which means you can lean even harder on callbacks to the classic original, as long as you ratchet up the tension. It starts with actress Samara Weaving, who worked with these directors on Ready or Not, waiting for a date at a restaurant, and getting killed almost immediately for getting every horror movie rule. Fun detail, her character's last name is Crane, same as Janet Leigh's in Psycho. Never gets old. It's especially reckless, since she teaches a university course on slashers. Where was that class when I was in school? I'd have happily defended a dissertation on the effects of a machete on Jason Voorhees' victims. After dispatching a famous actress in the first minutes, respecting tradition, the killer takes off the mask. And it's Tony Revolori, who you'll remember from the Grand Budapest Hotel and as Flash Thompson in Tom Holland's Spider-Man films. Are we finally doing Kevin Williamson's killer revealed from the start idea? Revolori's character and his buddy are planning to finish Richie's screenplay from the last film, framing and killing Tara and Sam, who've moved to New York. Yep, Ghostface is stalking a real metropolis now, not a small town. Sure, Scream 3 went to Los Angeles, but that all played out on studio lots and in lavish mansions. Ghostface has never been this bold and mobile. In one scene, he chases the heroines down a city street, then casually ducks into a bodega and chops through bystanders.
You got a problem here, guy?
Jason Voorhees did that kind of thing ages ago in Friday the 13th Part 8, wandering Times Square, barging into eateries, even riding the subway. We'll come back to that. Scream 6 knows its references. Revolori's TV is literally playing Jason Takes Manhattan, and he's wearing a shirt referencing Dario Argento's giallo slasher Four Flies on Grey Velvet, which also features tense subway and abandoned theater sequences. This film's climax. Okay, enough nostalgia. The point is, Richie's rabid fans don't pull it off. They're killed by another Ghostface, nastier than ever, wearing a battered, scuffed mask. It's the same smart move Halloween 2018 used. An aged Michael Myers mask, instantly signaling legacy and menace. This Ghostface isn't like the clumsy, tripping teens of old. When he wrestles a shotgun from a shop owner and goes on the hunt, you feel how different he is. Whoever it is has experience, and right on cue, Kirby returns. Yes, the survivor of Charlie's betrayal in Scream 4, now an FBI agent.
She's a child. When did they start letting children into the FBI?
I'm 30.
Time flies. She's the prime suspect almost to the end, but the movie points so loudly at her that you can cross her off early. Let's meet the rest of the suspect pool. It's deep, and the mystery genuinely entertains even in the quieter stretches. The poster flaunts 13 main players, 7 make it to the end, and only 2 are truly innocent victims. The rest? Killers. Yes, that many. Returning from last time, Randy's niece and nephew, the mandatory gift to hardcore fans, Courtney Cox, Sam's across-the-street boyfriend Danny, Mindy's girlfriend, and a couple of random roommates Mindy side-eyes until one of them gets murdered. Not that it clears them. In Scream, death doesn't erase suspicion. Another key player is Detective Bailey, played by Dermot Mulroney. It's a solid lineup with clever red herrings and straight-up clues sprinkled in. Now, about the elephant in the room. Nev Campbell's exit meant no Sydney. What if Ghostface pulls off the mask and it's... They write Sydney out with a single line.
She deserves to have her happy ending.
Maybe it's Gail. Parker Posey's character joked back in Part 3 that Gail should be the killer in Stab 3.
You can't come out the killer, Stab 3! I'm the killer!
And Gail's clearly still in fighting shape. She dodges that lifetime of being slapped by grieving victims.
Nice try, sweetie, but I've done this dance before.
Well, not always. She gets wrecked in a stylish penthouse set piece but survives. How is this woman still standing? 2 bullets to the same spot across the series and a pile of stab wounds later. For the record, that fight won MTV's Best Fight.
Can you hold, please?
And Scream 6 itself took Best Movie. Very on brand for the network. Creatively, you can see why the writers tread lightly. Any wild swing with legacy characters was guaranteed to split the crowd. If you're gonna Han Solo someone, you can't do it to every beloved hero. That's franchise rule. The obligatory genre lecture scene is no longer about sequels. It's about franchises with tons of entries. In those, the story doesn't need the original leads anymore. They can exit without sinking the ship.
Which means main characters are completely expendable now, too.
Little Jamie dies in Halloween 6, Laurie in Halloween 8, Nancy Thompson dies in Elm Street 3, and in Part 4, everyone who survived the previous one gets wiped out. The bigger the series, the higher the risk. Rotation keeps the blood flowing. New viewers get in, hardcore fans get provoked. Scream 6 threatens your favorites, and then lets them live. A rare act of mercy. In the Halloween subway sequence, you can spot dozens of Easter egg costumes, but the key beat is Ghostface stabbing Mindy in a packed car and getting away with it. The wound is non-fatal. handy for creating an alibi for one particular killer. Okay, enough stalling. This time, there are 3 killers. 4 if you count Tony Revolori as both killer and victim, though his partner never gets started. The culprits are the neighbors, Ethan and Quinn, and their dad, Detective Bailey. They're Richie's family, out for revenge after Sam killed him.
Real great parenting job, by the way.
Shut your whore mouth!
The cop dad even built a full Ghostface museum, stuffed with evidence from every previous crime scene. We'd be here all week unpacking it. One of the best early clues to their motive is the dead brother talk.
Lost my brother.
Both my kids are gone. My whole family.
The movie underlines that detail for a reason. And here's the unnerving twist. Unmasked, these psychos aren't scary. When the first killer reveals himself and its Revolori's open, friendly face, it's funny, then chilling. Ghostface shouldn't be a hulking brute. The banality of evil is the point. That dark space can live in anyone. A smiling facade hiding a butcher. My Golden Ghostface nomination goes to the opening subversion itself. A killer killing a killer. A nasty, fresh trick 6 moves in, when fatigue should be setting in.
We have to finish the movie.
Who gives a about movies?
In the finale, the Carpenter sisters obliterate the whole murderous family with maximum brutality, while the repeatedly mangled Kirby and the movie nerds somehow survive horrific injuries. Sam takes another step toward her father's legacy, and cut to black. We'll find out the rest in Part 7. Scream 6 pulled nearly $170 million and pulled off the hardest trick of all. It made audiences care about the new leads. And that's where the fresh fans got bad news. But before we get into that, make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Melissa Barrera was fired from the new film over social posts. Okay, at least megastar Jenna Ortega, who took over the world as Wednesday, would still anchor the series. Except she left right after Barrera. First the word was standing in solidarity, then schedule conflicts, then pay dispute. Years later, it became clear it was about Barrera, an actor standing with a colleague. The trusted directing duo won't return either. Christopher Landon, director of Happy Death Day, stepped in, and then stepped out, clearing a way for the father of the franchise, Kevin Williams, to direct Scream 7. Yep, he's the one now slated to helm the new slasher. Suddenly, 2 films worth of setup, forward momentum, and newly beloved characters were wiped off the board. The producers rolled out the big guns, bringing back Neve Campbell, with Matthew Lillard in tow. It's tempting to mope about greed and cancel culture wrecking a favorite series, but let's pause and ask, what is Scream really about? It's not just a story about people unmasking a killer, it's a story about horror movies and cinema itself. A running chronicle of the genre that mirrors the classics and keeps tabs on each decade's trends. Pick any entry and you can see what the film world cared about then, what inspired it, how it tried to squeeze money from us while keeping us hooked. As long as cinema exists and people love it enough to study it and draw conclusions, Scream will keep going. Like its heroes, it'll get hurt, make mistakes, take damage, and come back with another tale full of suspense, deep-cut references, and self-aware wit.
It's a Scream, baby!
Now head over to the next video or check out the playlist packed with deep dives into iconic movies and legendary franchises. Thanks for watching.